Rose, to my left, is the editor of the Forest Park Review. She's worked as a reporter for the Oak Park-based Wednesday Journal family of newspapers for 4 years. She is executive director of Kids News Journalism Count. Previously, she was a reporter and night editor for the Lafayette Journal and Courier in Lafayette, Indiana. Jean Lotus. John Yee is the president of Neighbors of Maywood Community Organizations. An ordained minister, Mr. Yee founded the community in Maywood, a church without walls, in response to the needs he observed in the village that's been his home for more than 5 years. Since its founding, Yee's organization has attracted hundreds of missionaries to Maywood, maybe even thousands, to help on a variety of social service projects, such as cleaning up the parks and serving meals to those in need. John Yee. Jen Goldberg, to my right, is a retired high school teacher and longtime community activist. She's been politically active at the grassroots level since the 70s, most notably as part of the fight for the Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. She received her master's degree in urban studies from Northeastern Illinois University and her bachelor's degree from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Currently, she's active in several organizations, including Sarah's Inn, the Oak Park-based Domestic Violence Agency, the League of Women Voters, and the Illinois Retired Teachers Federation. Jen Goldberg. And finally, Erica Sanchez is a graduate student at Northwestern University School of Communication. She received her undergraduate degree from Elmhurst College. After a 12-year career in the financial industry working for companies such as J.P. Morgan Chase and Capital One, formerly HSBC, she transitioned to county government. Presently, she's an executive assistant in the office of the Cook County Recorder of Deeds. Mrs. Sanchez, a proud resident of Maywood, is the former chairwoman of Adelante, the Latino networking group at J.P. Morgan Chase, and an active volunteer in her community. She's married to Antonio Sanchez, Erica Sanchez.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony Pavela, and I'm running for state representative of the 77th District. The district includes North Maywood, Melrose Park, Stone Park, North Lake, Bensonville, and then parts of Franklin Park, parts of Addison, parts of Bellwood, and parts of Wooddale. So first, I'd like to thank Michael Romaine, the Village Free Press, Forest Park Review, the Maywood Public Library, and all the organizations that put this event together. I know a lot of hard work went into putting this event together. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here, for taking the time out of your day to come and let the candidates speak for themselves so that you can be more informed voters. Unfortunately, my opponent chooses to win the election through the mailbox instead of by engaging voters such as yourself. But I'm here, and I'm here in front of all of you to let you know who I am, what I believe, and why I decided to run. I'm a lifelong resident of Melrose Park. I was born and raised in Melrose. I was recently endorsed by the Illinois Federation of Teachers for the March 18th primary. I just graduated law school. I'm actually taking the bar on this coming Tuesday and Wednesday, so in addition to asking for your vote, please also say a little prayer for me, because this has probably been the most challenging thing I've ever done, running for office and studying for the bar at the same time. I'm currently a member of the Melrose Park Zoning Board. Before law school, I taught GED classes at Triton College, and I was also a substitute teacher for a short amount of time within District 89. I volunteered for numerous organizations in the community, and I have a real passion for the community, and I think we can do better. Now, some of the things that I believe and what I'm hoping to accomplish when I get into office, to me, the biggest problem in Illinois is the state of our economy. Too often, taxpayers are asked to tighten their belts, and we don't get anything for it. One of the things that I would be in favor of is consolidating some of these units of government that are relics of the past and offer duplicate services. For example, the average Illinois citizen has 6 layers of units of government, be that your local municipality, township, school district, what have you. And some of these, like I said, they offer duplicate services and we can consolidate them to save the taxpayers money. Because in my opinion, some of these units of government are breeding grounds for nepotism and political favors. So that's one way that we can save our taxpayers some money. I'm also in favor of a progressive tax system that would ease the tax burden on 94% of our residents. I'm in favor of having 2/3 of corporations that don't pay any taxes, bringing them into the fold and making them pay their fair share, but also in order to promote our economic climate, we also, taxes are too high for the 1/3 that does pay taxes. So I would be in favor of that, and I already signed that petition, I told you, but I'm definitely in favor of having these districts drawn by an independent commission, because every 10 years when there's a redistricting, the party that's in control gerrymanders these districts and there's no competition. Voters don't have a choice in most of these races. So I think that we need to take the process of redistricting out of the hands of those in control and put them with an independent commission so that the voting process is more fair towards everybody. As far as schools, I think that we need to have school districts rely less on property taxes and more on the state, because a community such as this one, the 77th district is a working class district. Maywood is a community that's been hit hard by foreclosures. That's all property taxes that aren't going to go to schools anymore. So I'm a big proponent of that. Now, with the little time I have left, I'm running because our district lacks leadership. This library closed a couple of months ago, and as I said earlier, the district, my district includes Maywood. I was here, my opponent wasn't, so please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to Michael Romaine, Gene Lotus, John Yee, Jan Goldberg, Erica Sanchez. Thanks to the Think Democracy Forum for having me. I will choose to read a statement. That is what we all talked about. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I stand before you as a candidate for Proviso Democratic Township Committeeman. My name is James Papa Brewer, and I'm a lifelong resident of the village of Maywood. I graduated from Washington Elementary School, right here in Maywood, and attended Proviso East High School. During my years at Proviso East High School, I was acknowledged for my outstanding skills on the basketball court, which eventually led to a state championship in 1969. I acquired my bachelor's degree from the University of Minnesota in 1973. After playing in the NBA for 9 years, and as a professional for 12 consecutive years, I remembered the words of my parents, Dorothy and Willie Brewer. To whom much is given, much is required. So with that in mind, I moved back to Maywood to support local charities and nonprofit organizations. I worked tirelessly for the Special Olympics by encouraging kids with special needs. I also worked with drug education, Truth About Drugs. My commitment for the community has never wavered, and despite my absence, I have always been present. Today, we all witness the various changes that have taken place in the villages comprising Proviso Township. and none are more evident than in Maywood. As your committeeman, I will support candidates that only have a commitment to the community. My plan is to increase voter registration by getting the youth involved in the political process and educating others, that means everyone, about the importance of our local elections. By me not being a career politician, I do not make excuses for what's being done. Instead, I will react with results. I will work tirelessly to support candidates that are committed to unemployment, business development, recidivism reduction, and overall education. I refuse to allow politicians to use our communities as a guaranteed vote. Instead, we must make it mandatory for them to implement programs and provide necessary resources. For far too long, our villages have been overlooked, forgotten, and abused. Now it's time for us to stand up and fight back. And by voting for me as the Pavela Township Committeeman, I will ensure that communities are positively impacted by the candidates I support. Thank you for inviting me out today. And I realize that we are all here for the same purpose, for the betterment of our community. Together we stand, divided we fall. So please come out and vote on March 18, 2014, early voting March 3rd. I want you on my team. And we call my team the Brew Crew. And do you know what the Brew Crew can do? Punch 192. Punch 192. And we will stand behind you. We want you on our team. Thank you once again. And I'll hand it over to you.
What I'd like to do is just stand up and talk, since there are mic issues, but and also I like to see you. I am Judge Pamela McLean Meyerson. I'm running in the 11th Subcircuit, which includes all of Maywood, a big piece of Bellwood, some of Melrose Park. It does not include Forest Park, but I'm from Oak Park, where I have lived for 30 years. I am a judge with experience, empathy, and ethics. Experience. I am a sitting judge. I now hold the position for which the other candidates and I are running in the 11th Subcircuit. How did that happen? I was selected by the Illinois Supreme Court to hold this vacancy until the next election. And I was selected through a committee that was organized by Justice Mary Jane Tice. That committee was a bipartisan committee. It was a very thorough vetting. They took a look at my 30 years of experience as a lawyer. They took a look at my education at the University of Chicago Law School and at DePaul University. They took a look at my experience as a lawyer and my community service, and they decided that I was the person to hold the job. The second thing I want you to remember about me is empathy. One of the things that the chair of the committee said about me when he was talking about my appointment was that I bring to the bench intelligence, fidelity to the law, and most importantly, he said, considerable experience and empathy regarding the difficult circumstances of life that judges are called upon to decide every day. Now, how did he think that I would have empathy? What was it in my background that he saw that led him to that conclusion? Well, I have been a lifelong, since I was an adult, a lifelong volunteer in my community. I have done both pro bono legal work and other non-legal work in the community. He cited specifically some of my pro bono legal work. I helped out with representing unrepresented homeowners in mortgage foreclosures. I helped out down here at Maywood Courthouse, folks who came in for small claims court who didn't have a lawyer. I helped them out. I helped out the the folks who are coming in for expungements of their criminal records. Every year, the clerk of the court has an expungement summit. And so young people or older people who have something on their record and they've made good, I helped out with that. Last thing I want you to remember is ethics. I'll talk more about that later. Again, I'm Pamela McLean Meyerson.
My name is Joanne Inksman. My candidate is Joanne Rosado, who has a previous commitment that she is unable to attend, but we do appreciate the opportunity to represent her here. I am also her mother, so who best to represent her? Who knows her best? Joanne has served as an assistant public defender since 2002. 10 and a half of those years she was a public defender at 26th Street. Her position requires her to assist with everything from bond hearings, preliminary hearings, motions, bench, and jury trials. Based on her expertise and experience, she has been assigned to an elite unit at the top of the office, where she handles murder trials and other complex cases. She has been a lifelong resident of the 11th Subcircuit. In her spare time, when she's a single mom of 3 children, she also participates in programs such as the Chicago Coalition for Law-Related Education in the Chicago Public Schools through Chief Judge Evans and lawyers in classrooms. She coaches mock trial teams and presents mock trials for the Chicago Public School System. She participates in mentorship programs for high school, college, and law students. She also assists in programs assisting in feeding the poor and providing gifts and meals during holiday time. As a graduate of John Marshall Law School, DePaul University, and Resurrection High School, she believes her education and ability to give back to the community comes from hard work, determination, and dedication. She believes that her job is not just a job, but a lifestyle that allows her to give back to the community as well as be a regular person. She fights every day for individual rights because she believes in the Constitution of this country that was founded on blood, sweat, and tears, and takes to hard work and dedication is something she believes in. She would like for you to remember to come out and vote May 18th. Early voting starts March 18th. Early voting starts March 3rd. And please punch 172.
Hi everyone, I'm Gina Crumble. I'm also running for judge in the 11th Judicial Subcircuit. I'm an Oak Park resident, but I have lifelong ties to Maywood and the Proviso area. My family's from Maywood, and many of my family members still live in Maywood. I went to St. Paul Lutheran. I went to IHM when it was still there. This is my community, and I'm proud to be running for this position to try to serve my community as I've done in my legal career. I went to Northwestern University School of Law, graduated in 1994, and I've been working in public service ever since. I'm currently a Cook County State's Attorney. I'm a supervisor in the Child Protection Division, where I supervise attorneys who are prosecuting child abuse cases, civil child abuse cases. So those are your DCFS cases. I have dedicated my career to the field of child protection, previously working with the Cook County Public Guardian's Office and the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services in a legal capacity, to try to make change in our communities, to try to help our families, particularly, as we all know, our black families are disproportionately represented in the court system, and particularly in the juvenile court system. I've done what I can to try to examine that issue. It's an issue that's being examined currently. We're trying to do trainings to try to help inform staff at the department and in the courts on how we can make changes in these areas, and just to show that we care about our community and that the people who come before us, our people, make a difference. We have to let me back up. I'd like to just address not so much my background, but what would be relevant to you as a voter. I'm a fair person. I'm not just a prosecutor. I'm a person who public defenders and other private attorneys say they would like to appear before, and I'm proud of that. As a state's attorney, that's a rare comment to be able to make. and it's what has been said to me. I was asked to run for judge by other judges, by defense attorneys who thought I would be fair and who think that my 20 years of experience in public service really make a difference, and that my litigation experience with the state's attorney's office and my management experience as a supervisor for almost 7 years will make a difference in a courtroom, managing a busy Cook County courtroom. That management experience is critical, and it's something that I can bring to the table that the other candidates in my race can. The duties of a Cook County Circuit Court judge are to evaluate evidence fairly, effectively, and to rule on the evidence that's been deemed admissible fairly, and to treat all people with dignity and respect. That's what I intend to do. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Judge Marianne Jackson, and I'm a candidate for judge in the 7th Judicial Subcircuit, candidate for the position of Circuit Court Judge. I've been involved in the law 40 years. There is no aspect of the law that my experience has not touched. I've been an associate judge for 16 years, in private practice doing criminal trial work for 18 years, federal court prosecutor, state court prosecutor. I've taught law. I've taught law students. I've taught lawyers. I've been invited to teach in every law school in the Chicago area. I've been invited all over this country to come and teach lawyers how to do this right. And I'm running because I know, I don't believe I know, that I'm the best qualified candidate. I don't want anybody out there thinking that I'm being arrogant, because it's not arrogant to state a fact. None of my other opponents can tell you they have 40 years experience in the law. That is a fact. For the last 16 years, I've been over at juvenile court. I have the courtroom that covers the Austin area. Every kid that gets arrested in Austin comes to see Judge Jackson. So I spend all day, every day, and I am committed to redirecting our young people's lives. I'm trying to get them off of street corners. I'm trying to get them off of gangs. I'm trying to get them away from drugs. I'm trying to get them away from guns and the horrible violence and destruction that we all know follows as the result of our young people being involved in that. I am a lifelong resident of the city of Chicago, but I'm also a lifelong resident of the west side of the city of Chicago. The 7th Subcircuit covers the west side of the city of Chicago, Little Village, Pilsen. We also have Forest Park. We have River Forest. We have a big part of Berwyn, and we have a smaller part of Cicero. I'm endorsed by the Congressman Danny K. Davis. I'm endorsed by LaShawn K. Ford. I'm endorsed by Robert Steele. I'm endorsed by my Alderman Deborah Graham. I know that I can do this job. I've been doing it already. For 16 years, I can do it. The difference in the position that I'm seeking is one of voting privileges that circuit court judges get, that associate judges don't get. But I'm also doing it because of the potential to have greater voice and a greater say-so in what happens in the Circuit Court of Cook County. That's a privilege that is not extended to associates, which is why I'm seeking to become a circuit court judge. I'm asking you to go to the polls on March 18th, punch number 175 for the most qualified candidate in the 7th Subcircuit. That would be Marianne Jackson.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Timothy OHara. I'm an attorney. I'm here on behalf of Scott Michael Kozicki, who's running in the 11th Subcircuit. He's not running against Ms. Jackson, Judge Jackson. Thank goodness, right? Scott couldn't be here today because he's in Seattle, Washington, presenting at the American Academy of Forensic Sciences on DNA and other forensic issues. He wanted to be here today because this is Maywood is part of his subcircuit. He wanted to see the folks that are here because it means a lot to him to see people coming out for an event like this. Let me tell you a little bit about Scott, because I know him real well. He's a very good friend of mine. I was a public defender for 8 years, and we worked together in the trenches, trying cases. I won some cases with Scott, and I lost some cases with Scott. And I know one thing is for sure, he is a very, very good lawyer. And he will be a very, very good judge. He's been a public defender for 14 years. Born and raised in the Chicagoland area. His family lives in Oak Park. He's married, has 2 children. He went to high school in Oak Park. And he's been pretty much doing everything in the criminal justice system you can do. He's done appellate work. He's done work in our juvenile justice, in the juvenile department. And he's done work in the forensic science division. He's tried many, many jury trials. He's tried many bench trials. He's well regarded. He's been deemed qualified by the Chicago Bar Association. Now, recently, something very significant that he did, I think you should know about. There was a case, and an individual had been found guilty, or had been found guilty, sentenced to 22 years. Scott, in the post-conviction stage of this gentleman's case, Scott's client, he presented DNA evidence to a judge and had that conviction reversed. He was found actually innocent by a judge, and the conviction was reversed. That's something that takes diligence to do that, to believe in a client so much that you can present evidence on someone who's already been convicted. And now that gentleman has been deemed actually innocent. The qualities you look for in a judge: experience, integrity, and good temperament. Scott has all 3 of those. It's my pleasure to appear on behalf of him. I'll get a chance to talk to you one more time, but I thank you for your time. Michael Romaine and the moderators, I thank you for having me. Thank you all.
Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Martin. I'm here on behalf of Owens Shelby. He's running for judge in the 7th Subcircuit. I apologize, we apologize that he couldn't be here. Our son had to get an emergency surgery on his hip last week, so we've had to accommodate our work schedule and his campaign schedule as a result. So let me begin by telling you that I met Owens about 6.5 years ago while I was practicing law at a big, large law firm here in Chicago. I was also a single parent to our son, as his biological father passed away during my first year of practice. It was brutal, but God looked out for us by bringing Owens J. Shelby into our lives. Now, I started off with that story to give you insight into his character. He is a father figure. Helping others is ingrained into his identity. With respect to his family, he is the anchor of his family, and he does whatever it takes to help in whatever capacity, whether it's financially, giving advice, serving as a mentor. He does it all. With respect to his career, he chose to serve as prosecutor here in Cook County. He has served for 6 years and handles up to 40 cases at any given moment. I watch him every single day fight to serve justice with a balanced approach. This is difficult to do. He's an African-American male, and quite frankly, many of the people who come before him, the defendants, are also African-American males. So I watch him fight to serve justice with a balanced approach. With respect to his community, Owens J. Shelby was born and raised on the west side of Chicago. He does it all, whether it's mentoring youth through the Better Boys Foundation, mentoring any youth that he meets in our community, in our smaller community, which is Berlin. He coaches basketball. He speaks at civic engagements and career days. He helps to facilitate and speak at trainings for domestic violence, victims, and other pertinent legal issues. So overall, Owens J. Shelby is a highly qualified candidate who was born and raised on the west side of Chicago. He loves his community. He's looking forward to your continued support, and thank you for having me.
Judge can be really neutral in matters of the law when he or she claims a party allegiance as part of getting elected to the circuit court. Can he be neutral in his judgeship?
Of course a judge can be neutral and still run as a candidate in a particular party. Because you don't pledge allegiance to the party. You simply say what your political preference is. A judge takes an oath when they get sworn in, and the oath is to uphold and to defend the laws and the Constitution of the state of Illinois. And that is where your allegiance belongs as a judge, to the oath that you take of office. Do I wish that elections were run this way? No, I don't. That's my own personal opinion. Nobody go back and tell them that the Circuit Court of Cook County, Judge Jackson is advocating for anything she would not be advocating for. But no, I don't think this is the best possible way to elect judges, but it's the way we have. And so we have to remember where our allegiance lies. I'm supposed to rule fairly and impartially based on the facts before me and the evidence applicable to those facts, and that's all I do, and that's all any other judge should do.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Obviously, I agree with Judge Jackson. I think judges absolutely can be neutral and fair, as despite the fact that they may feel some allegiance to a particular political party. Parties coming before the court are not coming before the court as Democrats or Republicans. Judges are not asking those questions. Judges do not have personal information about the people who are before them other than the facts that are relevant to the case. And so, again, as Judge Jackson stated, the facts that are relevant to the case, the evidence that has been admitted, and the law are the only factors in play. Any politics, any political allegiance or personal beliefs are not a part of the judge's decision making. And again, there's an oath of office that requires the judge to be fair, impartial, and uphold the law as it is, not to change the law or to try to twist the law to fit their political agenda. So, of course, judges are running for office. We, as candidates, are running for office because we are looking to be impartial as judges. If we wanted to be political candidates in the sense that we would be representing a particular opinion or a set of beliefs, we'd be running for a different office. But running for judge, we're all aware that we have to be impartial, despite whatever our political preferences or allegiances may be.
Again, I'm Judge Pam Meyerson. The short answer to that question is yes. I can and I am impartial. The longer answer to that is, I think, gets into some of the philosophy of judicial elections, which is outside of our purview. We don't get a chance to say how we should be selected. I've had a couple of folks, when I was circulating my petitions, say to me, I don't want to sign that because I don't like the way judges are selected. And if they gave me a little bit more time to speak with them, usually they would sign, because what I would tell them is that I was selected by a bipartisan screening committee of the Illinois Supreme Court. And the way that works is that if there is a vacancy, then they fill that vacancy. And then, at the end of the vacancy, which will be when one of us takes the job, we have to be elected to that position. So that is the way that the framers of the Illinois Constitution, in their wisdom, decided the system would work. And I was selected by the closest thing that we have to merit selection in Illinois. And so you get to be the group that reviews the decision of the Illinois Supreme Court. And the only people who get to do that normally are the U.S. Supreme Court. So, and even then, a lot of times cases don't go all the way up, but you are in a very powerful position as voters. And I know that by being here, you've shown that you take that very seriously, and you are not just rubber stamping what they're doing. And so I ask you to look carefully at their process and decide that they made the right decision.
Candidates and their surrogates mentioned things about the youth, getting the youth involved in politics, talking about juvenile justice, a system that we've had in Illinois for over 100 years. So my question is this: think about it. If you're a teenager in Illinois, you could drive at 16, you could vote at 18, you can't drink till you're 21. Marriage, I think, is 18 for both genders, although that was moving around a lot. And now as far as getting into trouble, when you were 17, it used to be that you were an adult. You were tried as an adult, and you were sentenced as an adult. Now recently we've had something called raise the age legislation, which, since everything else, voting age, used to be a drafting age, was 18, they've raised the age of juvenile to adult justice to 18. And my question is, what effects do you think this is having on the criminal justice system? Changing the age of 17-year-olds, where they now can be tried as juveniles, where before they had to be tried as an adult. Let's start maybe in the middle this time. Ms. Crumble.
Yes, Gina Crumble. Thank you. Your question was what effect
What
is
effects
having-
is raising the age legislation having on our criminal justice system?
I would say there are a couple different effects. One, particularly with respect to the functioning of juvenile court, there is some, bringing the 17-year-olds into juvenile court now obviously is going to create a little more volume of caseloads in juvenile court. And so I would imagine there's likely to be some difficulty in moving through the cases as quickly as we used to when we didn't have all those 17-year-old cases. Putting that aside, that's just an issue the juvenile court has to deal with. The average daily population of 17-year-olds in Cook County Jail previously, to my understanding, was 200 to 300. That's 17-year-olds sitting in adult jail, waiting for their trials. And this legislation gives those 17-year-olds the opportunity to be considered the minors that they are. It gives them the opportunity to receive services through probation and juvenile court, and those who have not committed a felony using a firearm or either just a murder with any kind of weapon, those 17-year-olds can now be treated as juveniles. And so the opportunity for them to not enter the adult system, to not have access to hardened criminals who are teaching them to do worse things than they've already done, that is the benefit to the system as we have it now. Our criminal justice system for adults is generally considered punitive, whereas for children, we're using the principles of balanced and restorative justice to try to help the community and the offender to heal and to rehabilitate. And so rehabilitation of those 17-year-olds is really the best effect of the new law.
Judge Meyerson?
And deal with the more specific question, if I could, because I don't practice in the juvenile justice system, so the effects I can't speak to at this moment. But just to talk about the overarching goal of juvenile justice, and that is and should be rehabilitation, not punitive. And to the extent that we can get more young people into a system that is focusing on rehabilitation rather than punishing them, the better it is for our community. Again, I had spoken about the work that I had done with the expungement system. We know that young people make mistakes. We know that they are impulsive. I've raised 3 young men myself. They're in their 20s, and fortunately they have not had brushes with the juvenile justice system, but they haven't always made good decisions, and we know that people don't. And so I did participate in the summit that could expunge and seal the record, so that if you have a mistake on your record, and it's not something that is really a horrible blotch on your system, it doesn't have to follow you around the rest of your life. You don't have to have it on your record so that every time you apply for a job, a potential employer is going to see that, because a youthful mistake should not ruin a life.
I think there's another part of it that I would like to focus on, and that is the fact that I believe it is essentially at this point an unfunded mandate. The idea is good. Now you need to give us the money in order to follow through on the good idea.
Right.
Our statistics tell us that we should be expecting at least an additional 125 to 150 minors a year because of the law. Well, there needs to be more state's attorneys, there needs to be more public defenders to deal with that increase. I think with the judges that we have, we probably can absorb it, but there are going to be some issues upstairs in the detention center. 18-year-olds probably should be separated from 14-year-olds. And you know, that's an issue that we need to deal with, and the funds need to be there for it. I mean, it's a good idea, you know, to bring the 18-year-olds and the 17-year-olds and to give them the benefit of the criminal justice system, but you need to give us the funds. It's a limit to how long you can ask us to do more with less. At some point, you need to give us more.
I guess I'm going to ask you about sentencing. This is a question about sentencing bias. What is your understanding of sentencing bias in Cook County? And do you think it exists? And if so, what authority does the circuit court judge have to correct it?
Certainly probably exists in some courtrooms. I cannot say across the board it is a problem that exists in every courtroom, but we need to remember that the bench is just a microcosm of the larger society. It should not come as a surprise to anybody that they are racist and rogues. That's just a fact. Now, what can any individual judge do? If there's something going on in your courtroom that does not appear right, for example, if I have seen 50 cases come through and the suggested sentence in those 50 cases is 1 year probation, 40 hours community service, and all the rest of the usual conditions that get applied, and all of a sudden I see a case come through where, all things being equal, I'm now seeing 4 years, 500 hours community service. Somebody needs to explain to me why there is a difference. And the truth is there might be a legitimate difference after you probe beneath the surface. If you're just looking at the top of it, it might not look right, but after you probe beneath the surface, if I'm told that the kid now who's getting a 4-year sentence has 500 arrests, as opposed to the kid who, got the one.
I can say that the statistics seem to show that there is bias in some places. Again, we can't point fingers individually or try to determine where the bias is coming in, but it sure looks like there is some bias in some courtrooms. That being said, I think the obvious can be stated that a circuit court judge cannot consider race in sentencing, should not be considering race one way or the other in sentencing. It's not the judge's place to try to correct a bias that may exist because racist and rogues are creating that problem. An individual judge should maintain their high standard of ethics to make decisions based on the evidence, make sentencing decisions based on the law as it exists, not as they wish it to be, and impose sentences within the range of the sentences that are statutorily available in the particular situation. Again, I think, as Judge Jackson stated, there are many different factors to be considered, and the judge has to be cognizant of the fact that there's discretion and that those factors need to be fleshed out to determine what's best in a particular case. Each case has to be looked at individually, fairly, without bias and ethics.
So again, the question is there bias? I would have to agree with both of my colleagues that there probably is some bias. What do we as judges do about it? We make sure that we personally do not exhibit any bias. We listen carefully to all sides who are before us, and we're consistent. If the same set of facts comes before us, then we should rule the same way. If there is a difference in the facts that makes things different, then you should rule appropriately. But the whole thing is consistency. It's like when you're raising your kid, they need to know that if they do a particular thing and their older brother had a certain consequence, they're going to have to expect the same consequence, unless there's something else that happens, unless there's a difference in the facts. You need to have consistency.
I didn't use my
my whole time, so can I just add one additional thing?
Sure.
No dings. But that's why you need diversity on the bench. You cannot have just all white males, you can't have all black females. It needs to be a tapestry. All of those different thoughts, backgrounds and experiences need to be brought to bear. And when that happens, then there's less chance that you will see these aberrant results.
Regarding mortgage foreclosures, according to a February 12, 2014 article in Crane Chicago Business entitled "Zombie Properties Are on the Rise," but here's how to kill the trend. Between 2008 and 10, there were approximately 11,700 properties in the county that became zombie properties, or properties that result when a mortgage servicer files for foreclosure and then does not complete the process. And I think it's pretty clear the damaging effects this can have on any local community. And so the question is, are you aware of any ordinances or legislation in Cook County that may deal with this particular problem? And perhaps we can start with Judge Meyerson.
This is my area of expertise. I have been assigned for the last 7 months to the mortgage foreclosure section of the Circuit Court of Cook County down at the Daly Center. So I can tell you that I have a caseload of 6,000 cases. And so this is how cases, you know, some of these things happen because of the just overwhelming number of cases that any individual judge works with. And the way cases come before me for a decision is by the action of the bank. When the bank comes in and says, now we're ready, now give us a judgment, then we do that. So most of the cases that I deal with are 2012, 2013. We're just beginning to see some 2014s before me. But when I do get an older case that is before me, I look at it differently. I say, why has this been before us so long? What has been going on? Sometimes it's because it might have been off track for a while because they're trying to work something out with the homeowner, which is really the best possible solution. But how do we deal with these zombie properties? I know it's been a difficult situation for Maywood in particular, a lot of communities, but I know in Maywood. We have a calendar call every year when, so that cases can't be totally forgotten about. They come before the judge, and if nobody shows up on behalf of the bank or anybody else, then those cases are off the call. Then those cases are dismissed. I could say a lot more about the mortgage situation, but I'll pass it on.
So with respect to the specific question of zombie properties and any laws or ordinances to specifically address those, as Mr. Romaine stated in the beginning, we just got these questions shortly before this forum. So I can say that I personally had never heard of zombie properties. I'm familiar with the problem of foreclosures, particularly in Maywood, but that term I was not familiar with. So I did a quick check before I came in, and I did not see that there were any specific ordinances or laws to deal with that problem, and my gut instinct told me what Judge Meyerson just said. I would think that if an action had been filed and not followed through on, that the case would be dismissed if the bank wasn't showing up to actually pursue the foreclosure. What I did find that seemed informative, but I did not have sufficient time to read through it all, was a Woodstock Institute published report from January of 2014 with policy recommendations to address the issue. While that's not giving much of an answer, I would say it looked like a good start for some ideas for Cook County specifically to address the issue of zombie properties.
Woodstock Institute?
The Woodstock Institute published a report in January of 2014.
I have to tell you, I don't know a whole lot about mortgage foreclosure, but I do know what happens when communities begin to be destabilized. And that creates problems for all of us. You see crime spike in those neighborhoods, and it's understandable. It's not rocket science. You know, a person there are no meaningful employment opportunities. People will turn to crime in order to eat. They're not going to be hungry. They're not going to see their children hungry. They're not going to see them out on the street. And so when neighborhoods become destabilized, it creates problems for all of us. And that is a reason why we should be up in an uproar about zombie properties, because then you get zombie neighborhoods, and that creates, you know, a horrible situation for all of us.
All right, I'll just go with back to the sentencing part. Sometimes article recently claimed, well, 2006 claims that Cook County judges have handed down hundreds of improper boot camp sentences to violent felons. What's your analysis of the sometimes 2006 claim, and if you think it's valid, what do you think the motivation behind these lesser sentences are?
It appears that the information cited in the article is valid, that some judges have taken it upon themselves to go beyond the restrictions in the law that allow people who have not been convicted of violent offenses to be sentenced to boot camp. I believe the finding by Tom Dart was that out of 52 cases evaluated, 35 of the people who had been sentenced to boot camp, in fact, weren't eligible because of the violent offenses they had committed and been convicted of. So what that means is the judges in those cases were overlooking the requirements for boot camp. My comment on that, if presuming that's true, that appears to be the case from the article, would just be that obviously there's a reason those restrictions are in place, and as a judge, I would not be willing to go out on a limb and violate the law in that respect. I think those restrictions are there because violent offenses most likely should require the people to be incarcerated. Allowing the people who have committed such violent offenses to go out into the community, into a boot camp program, obviously creates the opportunity to put the community at risk. So it's really a judge sticking their neck out, and whether or not they're trying to be lenient or sympathetic to this person who may be a first-time offender or whatever the reason might be, the bottom line is that as judges, we cannot violate the law. We have to go with the law as it is, not as we wish it to be. And so overcrowding in jails or whatever the issue might be, we just can't do that.
I can't speak to the motivation of those judges. I haven't fact-checked whether those are actually true or not, but again, assuming they are, we have to keep in mind as judges, number one, that we raised our right hand and promised to uphold the law. And we need to keep in mind what is within our discretion and what is not within our discretion. So it's like there's a box. You can make a decision within the confines of the law. Those are the things in the box. You cannot stretch the facts. You cannot second guess the legislature, because we are not legislators. We have to make decisions according to the law, and sometimes that's not easy. I would love sometimes to be Oprah. I would love to be able to say, you get a house, you get a house, you get a house. Because I hear some horrible stories. You know, people come to me and they say, but I'm sick and I've lost my job and I don't have anywhere else to go, and my heart breaks. And people sometimes cry before me, and sometimes I feel like I'm going to cry too, but there is no crying and judging. So I have to follow the law, but I can be kind when I do it. I can tell people that I can manage their expectations and tell them you're going to be in your house for another 4 months, and then they're going to come in, and you're going to make sure that you get out on your own terms, and you don't want the sheriff to put your stuff on the street. So I follow the law.
Here goes Judge Jackson. And I've been accused of thinking outside the box, and I hope I continue to think outside the box. I don't like mandatory minimums. I don't. I am the one sitting there. I am the one that has the individual before me. I am the one that knows what the background of that person is. And I ought to be the one that has the authority to determine what the sentence should be in some instances. Again, you have to take all factors into consideration as a judge. It is a balancing thing that judges are supposed to do. We're not supposed to simply look at factor A. You have to take into consideration what's the best thing for the community. You have to take into consideration what's the best thing for the individual standing here before me. And sometimes you're also supposed to take into consideration not just the black letter of the law, but what was the intent behind the passage of that particular law, and try to put all of those things into what becomes a just, fair, legal, and compassionate sentence. I haven't read the Sun-Times article, but I do know that there is, in my humble opinion, a lot of overcharging in the city of Chicago. It happens a lot. Sometimes designed to bring about plea bargaining. Sometimes they never really intended that the person was going to wind up pleading to the most serious offense, but using it as a way to get them to plead to a lesser kind of offense. And so some of that may be going on. But we cannot incarcerate our way out of the problem we have in America. We need to start getting smarter, or we're going to bankrupt ourselves.
All right. Thank you again for sponsoring the forum. It's been wonderful to be able to meet with you all and to let you know some of my qualifications for the job that I'm seeking. Again, Pamela McLean Meyerson. I'm running in the 11th Subcircuit, and I am a judge with experience, empathy, and ethics. Let me tell you a little bit about the balancing that happens every day. The chair of the committee said that I'm respected for having intelligence and fidelity to the law, but also experience and empathy for the difficult circumstances of life that judges face every day. And you heard a little bit about how I balance that on a day-to-day basis. But it's those things don't always go in the same direction. The following the law, which I am bound to do, sometimes doesn't balance with the empathy. So what a judge does is make a decision within the confines of the law. And when I have to make a decision that's difficult for one party or the other, I listen to both sides, and I make a consistent decision from case to case. I treat parties who are in the same situation the same way. If there's a difference, if there's a reason that I need to, this case is different from another, I want to hear about that. But when people come before me, I am going to listen fully to what they have to say, even if it's going to make things go long, because I do have 6,000 cases assigned to me. Sometimes my court calls can go for a very long time, but if it means that it has to go for a little bit longer because somebody needs to give me more of the story to flesh things out, then I give them that time. So I listen to all sides, whether they are represented by a high-powered lawyer or whether they're struggling to represent themselves, because that happens all the time. I find people who come before me who do not have lawyers, and they're scared, they are intimidated, they need to be heard, but they don't know how to be heard. And so I try to put them in touch with the resources that we have at the court that can get them the help that they need. The legal help desk, the mediation programs, the case managers. If folks would come into me early on in the process, then I appreciate that. Again, Pamela McLean Meyerson. I am going to be the last judge on your ballot if you are in my subcircuit. So the last thing you should do before you're done voting is to vote for me. Thank you.
Okay, I too would like to thank you for inviting us to come out today and speak. My candidate is Joanne Rosado. She too is running in the 11th Subcircuit. Joanne is a hardworking, dedicated, compassionate attorney. She has dedicated her entire adult life to public service. I would like to read some of the bars that have rated her. Chicago Bar Association qualified. Illinois State Bar Association recommended. Women's Bar Association of Illinois recommended. Decalogue Society of Illinois recommended. Puerto Rican Bar Association highly recommended. Northfield Bar Association highly qualified. Lesbian and Gay Bar Association of Chicago qualified. Chicago Council of Lawyers qualified. Joanne works very hard. She is very dedicated to serving the community. Please remember her on March 18th, punch 172.
I didn't stand up the first time, so I will this time. Once again, I'm Gina Crumble. I'm running in the 11th Subcircuit, so that's Oak Park, Maywood, Bellwood, Melrose Park, Galewood, Elwood Park, all the way up to Rosemont. I'm a public servant. That's what I've decided to do with my legal career. That's what I've always done. And I want to continue serving the public in some capacity. I've chosen to run for judge because I believe that it's a job that I can do well, and it's a job that I'm qualified for. With 20 years of trial experience and almost 7 years of management experience now, I have a lot to offer. I have a different background than the other candidates, and it's something that I hope you consider. I train assistant state's attorneys to do the jobs that they do. It's one of my responsibilities as a supervisor. I'm responsible for making sure that the attorneys are well trained. I'm also responsible for screening cases that come into my division, and it's something else that I have to do to make sure that we evaluate the evidence to ensure that we only file petitions that we have sufficient evidence to prove. We're not going to take people's children away from them because without sufficient evidence. And so there's that same balancing that has to take place in the courtroom by a judge. It's what I'm doing now on a regular basis, evaluating evidence and putting it before the board. As a judge, I'll have the opportunity to be the person presiding over hearings, evaluating that evidence from the other side. I'm running because I will serve you well. I ask that you vote for me because I'm qualified and because I have the necessary experience to do the job. I've been found qualified or recommended by multiple bar associations. I won't list them all, but some are the Chicago Bar Association, the Cook County Bar Association, the Chicago Council of Lawyers, the Women's Bar Association of Illinois, the Puerto Rican Bar Association. Again, I won't try to recall them all off the top of my head, but there's a long list. And I have some others outstanding I haven't received my positive recommendations from. But it goes to show you that my background and experience is considered valuable by my colleagues in the bar associations, and I ask that you consider that as well in making your decision for who should represent the 11th Judicial Subcircuit in 2014. Please punch 171 for Gina Crumble. I will be the first name under the list of 11 Subcircuit judges, which will be at the bottom of your ballot. Thank you.
I see somebody going like this.
Judge Jackson.
I believe I'm well qualified. I know I'm well qualified to do this job. For the last 14 years, that focus has been on juveniles, attempting to do everything I can to help who we should consider the least amongst us, and that is our children. Our children are in trouble, and we need to do more. We can do more to turn their lives around. We owe it to them. I have some thoughts and some ideas about what it is that I think that could be done, and I certainly want to put myself in a position where should the position of presiding judge at juvenile court become open, that I can say to my boss, I'd like you to consider me for that position. And that is something that will not happen so long as I remain an associate judge. I have appeared before all the bar associations. Illinois State Bar says you're highly qualified, Judge Jackson.
Justine said, you're highly qualified, Judge Jackson. Puerto Rican Bar says the same thing. They're still coming in. The Chicago Bar Association says Judge Jackson is well regarded for her knowledge of the law. She effectively manages her courtroom, and she is known for her outstanding judicial temperament. That means essentially everybody in my courtroom gets treated fairly. It does not matter who you are. You came there for justice in my courtroom, you're going to get it. I'm asking for your support. I'm asking you to go to the polls on March 18th. I'm asking you to find number 175 and vote for the best qualified candidate for this position. We live in a place where sometimes when you talk to people about qualifications, they want to roll their eyes up in the top of their head, because all too often in this town, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. I know you all. I know you. I'm asking you, go to the polls, help me become the next judge elected from the 7th Judicial Subcircuit.
All that clap. You get a chance in a few minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm here for Scott Michael Kozicki. He's running in the 11th Judicial Subcircuit. I'm so happy we were asked to be here today to speak to you all, because voting for judges is really, really important. It comes on the back of your ballot, sometimes at the last portion of the ballot, right? It's always the last part of the ballot. A lot of people don't even flip the page over. But the fact you guys are here shows you're interested in hearing and finding out. Why is it important to vote for judges? Because judges are going to decide things like your health, a personal injury type lawsuit. The judge is going to preside over that. They're going to decide things about your house. If a foreclosure suit is filed, the judge is going to hear that. They're going to decide potentially issues about your freedom. In a criminal charge is lodged against you, you're going to appear in front of a judge. Perhaps it's the most important election on that ballot, is the judicial election. So thank you so much for having us here to speak about these issues that are really important. Scott Michael Kozicki will represent the 11th Judicial Subcircuit with extreme experience, with his excellent demeanor, and with his ability to treat individuals with dignity. His experience is 14 years in the Public Defender's Office, representing individuals from traffic court all the way to murder at 26 in California. His temperament, he was listed as having an excellent demeanor by the Chicago Bar Association during their evaluation of him. And his ability to treat individuals with dignity, I've had a chance to sit beside him in trial and see how he treats his clients. And let me tell you, he treats them with dignity. He'll do the same when he's on the bench. Thank you all for hearing me out today. Thank you for having us all. Thank you.
Again, my name is Carrie Martin, and I'm here on behalf of Owens J. Shelby, who is running for judge in the 7th Subcircuit. So Owens and I were young. This has been the primary critique of his candidacy. This is why I'm sharing this with you all. He's been told to withdraw. He's been told, you're just a kid, right? And I get it. I could relate to this journey. When I left practice to become a law professor, I was told the same thing. My students would look at me and say, who is this young woman with curly hair? Can she teach us the intricacies of business law, of securities law? While I had to work 3 times harder than some of my counterparts who did have more experience, I stepped up to the plate. And I can assure you that Owens J. Shelby will do the same thing. While he can't tell you that he's in the past 6 years, he's highly qualified every single day. Prior to serving as a prosecutor, he worked in Springfield for the Speaker working on legislation. After that, he also worked on a major anti-discrimination case for a law firm. Yet he decided to commit his life to service. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our generation to take the lead. Not 5 years from now, not 10 years from now, but right now. Because if we don't take the lead, there will be a gaping hole in our leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, when you give us the opportunity, it moves mountains. Because when we have that opportunity to lead, it plants that seed of leadership in the peers beside us and in all of the people to follow. So thank you all so much for being here today. I want to ask you for your support. Give Owens J. Shelby that opportunity to take the bull by the horns and continue to lead with respect, with dignity, with accountability, with discipline. Again, he's running for judge in the 7th Subcircuit, punch 174. Thank you.
And now can we applaud all of our